Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my top 10 exercises. If I could only do 10 exercises for the rest of my life, I'm going to list out the ones that I would do. Of course, you guys can have different opinions, and depending on your fitness goals, you may have different exercises in there, but for me, this is my top 10. I've seen quite a few other YouTubers do this in the past, so I thought, why don't I make my own list? So without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, we're going to start off with exercises for the legs, because it's the biggest muscle group, I guess, in your body. So first exercise is going to be the leg press for me. Now, I know some of you might be surprised and maybe asking, well, why not a squat? Well, the squat puts a lot of pressure on my lower back, and I can't push it as hard because of that, and I find that my lower back can fatigue sometimes before my quads actually do, so I have to cut off the set. And now you may think, well, why don't you do the belt squat? You've done that before. I like the belt squat. It's just the belt is not as comfortable, and I just feel like I can push a lot harder on the leg press. It feels really great. It's going to target the quads, and it's also going to target the glutes and a little bit of hamstrings as well. So just for an overall leg builder, that's going to be the leg press for me. Now an exercise to target the hamstrings, that is going to be the seated hamstring curl. Now, I actually don't have a seated hamstring curl at my house. I only have a lying hamstring curl, and you're probably thinking, well, why do you want to do the seated one if you have the lying right here, you know? What's the difference, right? Well, the seated hamstring growth, there's been a lot of studies going around that most of the muscle growth happens in the stretched position of a movement, and when you're seated, just think, if you're seated and your legs are up and you're leaning forward, your hamstrings are going to be pre-stretched, whereas if you're lying down, the hamstrings are not stretched at all. So a lot of studies have shown that the seated hamstring curl can grow a lot more muscle than the lying. Now, I only have a lying hamstring curl at home, so that's what I do. The lying hamstring curl is not a bad exercise, but if we're trying to optimize hamstring growth, I think the seated one may be a little better for most people, and definitely for me. Next exercise, last exercise for the legs. This one was tough for me, but I'm gonna have to go with a barbell hip thrust. It was close between either this or the RDL, but I feel like the hip thrust, I just want something to isolate the glutes, and I think that the hip thrust is probably a better exercise to do that. I think that an RDL is going to target more your hamstrings, and we're already getting a lot of hamstring development with the seated hamstring curls, so I think having a glute exercise is going to be good just for an overall balanced leg and quad development. Okay, now we are moving on to the pull, and you're probably like, wait a minute, you didn't do an exercise for calves. Well, you see, when you only have 10 exercises, you kind of have to be a little picky, and let's be honest right now. Are the calves that important in a physique? Yeah, okay, if you got huge calves, it looks sick, but if you have small calves, I don't think that's gonna completely ruin it. I actually do have pretty small calves compared to the rest of my body, so it would make sense for me too, but no calf exercises, because we only got 10, so we gotta be really strict. But moving on to pull, the first exercise is going to be the lat pull down. Great exercise for giving you a really nice stretch on the lats. If I had to pick a grip for the lat pull down, it would kind of be like a medium grip. Actually, let me go get that real quick. Yeah, it would be like this grip right here. I think a closer grip would also be good, because if the closer the grip, the more range of motion and stretch you can get out of the lats, and I just find that this middle grip here is just, it's a good amount of, you can get a good amount of stretch on the lats, and I like it the best. So that's the grip I would use personally for the lat pull down. Next exercise for the back. Now, because the back is such a complex, there's a lot of smaller muscles in the back, I think it's great to have one pull down exercise and one type of rowing exercise. Excuse me. So I'm going to go for the chest supported row. I think that I like the chest supported row rather than like a seated cable row, because again, with the seated cable row, it kind of puts a lot of pressure on your lower back, and when you have your chest supported, I really just feel like I can have a better mind muscle connection with my lats and mid traps, and I like that one the best. And we can't forget the biceps, and yes, the biceps will be taken care of pretty decently with the rows and the lat pull down, especially if you're going to use an underhand grip. But I'm going to include the dumbbell bicep curl. I just think it's a great exercise. I want to have big biceps, so I'm definitely going to include an exercise for them. Moving on to push, and the first exercise is going to be for the chest. It is the barbell bench press. And you might be surprised, because if you watched my top 3 exercises for the chest, I only had the bench press as the 3rd best exercise. But you gotta remember, this is for 10 exercises I can only use for the rest of my life. So I think that cable flies would be better, yes, for growing your chest because you can get a bigger stretch. But if you also want to get stronger, then I think the bench press is just the king for strength and hypertrophy. It's the perfect combo. We're also going to hit the medial and lateral heads of our triceps. Not so much the long head, but we will hit the medial and lateral head, especially if we use a closer grip. And that's going to hit the chest and those 2 heads of the triceps pretty well. So I think that's another great exercise. And you know how I just said we would hit the medial and lateral head, but not the long head that much? That's why the next exercise is going to be barbell skull crushers, because when we have the weight over our heads, we can really get a nice stretch on the lats and put it over our heads, and that's going to really work the long head of the tricep, which is the biggest head, and that's probably the head you want to focus on the most, because when you flex like this, that's actually the head that comes down to the bottom here, and that's the one that you're going to see the most, and it's going to make your arm look the biggest. So I think it's great to have an exercise to really isolate and really stretch that head of the tricep. It will work the other heads too, but mainly the long head. And final exercise for push. You know we can't be skipping out on the shoulders. It is going to be the cable lateral raise. And you might be surprised, only one exercise for shoulders. But here's the thing, when we're rowing and we're doing our pull downs, we're going to be hitting our rear delts pretty good. If you use control and you really squeeze at the bottom, your rear delts should get activated. And when we bench press, we're also going to be hitting our front delt. The only delt that's really not getting hit is the side delt. So I think it's great to have an exercise to isolate them and really grow them. And a lot of times when it comes to having these huge, like, you know, you want big delts and stuff like that, it's really the side delt that makes it massive. Yes, the front and rear will complete the frame, but really you want huge side delts. So that's why cable lateral raise, and it's the cable machine specifically because it provides a smoother resistance path throughout the whole range of motion, whereas if you use a dumbbell, you have no tension in the stretched position. Whereas if you use cables and you set the cable a little higher and go, you can have tension, maximum tension throughout the whole range of motion, which will just result in some more muscle growth. And you're probably like, well, you went through legs, pull, push, you did 9 exercises. It's supposed to be 10, right? Well, we can't forget about the most important muscle in our body, and that is your heart, guys. Yes, if you didn't know, the heart is a muscle, and that is why I think it is very important to have an exercise to work your heart, and that's why I'm going to be picking the stationary bike as my final exercise for my 10 exercises. The heart's the most important muscle, and you gotta work your heart, and I'm picking the stationary bike. Yes, it's not the best form of cardio, as the elliptical, you're using your upper body and your lower body, but I like the stationary bike. I find I can burn more calories on it because I've been doing it for so long. My body's adapted to get good at it, and I can watch TV and use my phone and edit. I'm probably going to be editing this video on the stationary bike, so I can do that. And whereas if the elliptical, I can't. I'm using my whole body. I can't really edit videos at the same time. So that is my list, guys. Let me know if your list was any different. I'm sure it is, depending on your fitness goals. I just wanted to hit every body part, get a good overall balanced physique. But let me know what you think of my list. If you guys have enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new here, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.